So this is our rose tutorial for December 2024, and I have started painting, doing wet on the stem first, and I have started with lemon yellow. All my colors are Daniel Smith, and because I wanted a good paper which is a good absorbent as well, I'm using Arch cold pressed. After having dropped lemon yellow, I'm dropping in sap green. I'll be following this with this dark green. If you do not have a dark green, which is Van Dyke green, you can use any of the blue colors as well. Whatever colors you have. I'm slightly lifting off from the left side. Though the stem is completely green, but still on the right hand side, I'll make it slightly darker. Dropping in my darker blues here. So we have come to the end of this year, and you can create this flower rose in any of the colors that you want. I have some opera pink. It's a fugitive color, but since this rose is for my personal keeping, so I'm using this fugitive color as well. So you see, this is the consistency I'm going to work with. It is right there on the palette. My reference image is right in front of me. I also have it open on my another gadget, electronic device, so that I can see the colors properly. Also, I'm trying to put in values properly because it is the values which will allow me to have a 3D shape for this rose. Now I'm putting in the darks. I have a mix of magenta over here. Since it is wet, I am putting in the colors. If it had dried, then I would have allowed it to dry completely. Only then would I have come with another layer of color. And you need to go as dark as you see or as light as it is. And initially, we are all doing it from light to dark. Opera pink again. And I'll show you two of the petals, and that is how you will have to complete the entire bud. It's bud like rose, so you'll have to complete accordingly. In case you have any difficulty, you can ask me. This is a area which has shadow as well as light. So after having wet this slight area on the left, I am putting in colors in the shadow areas only. I'm using a pale consistency because I'll be following up with 2 more layers at least. So I'm dropping in colors where my shadows are. This is a very important stage. You must look at it carefully because this will give you a very fair idea as to how you will go about doing the entire petal. Where there is light, I'm just spreading the color, and here, because on the reference image I see it is darker, I'm using my magenta color over here. It's going out, so I'm just taking it off. So here there is a shadow area as well as a petal. Petal is darker as well as its shadow, which is falling on the rose. I'm carving out the shadows which I can see within these shadows. Now when you're doing any of the petals on your own, you'll have to do this step. My rose, the where I have painted, is still wet, but the dots which I had put there, those have dried up. So I'm coming down at this place with a damp brush so that I can soften the line. Now I have some opera pink mixed with little bit of magenta, and it's not a very dark mix, but I'm trying to put in the shadows as per the reference image. Again, here in the shadow areas, you see there are various values. Where it is light, I have put in light, and here because it is dark, so I'm putting in some darker values of magenta and opera pink mix. If I get confused, I just stop myself and then I get a clarity and then I work on it. Here there are very many colors and values which I can see on the reference image, and I'm trying to bring that out on our painting. Here it's a very light value, and since that line which I had created earlier is somewhat wet, so I'm just joining that area with water. There is hardly any paint in the brush. It's already a small one. Here I'm doing the right side leaf or whatever we call it, and I'll be I am in fact going through the exact same process with which I had done the one to your left. So putting down my very pale colors, I'm using Van Dyke green, and I also have sap green. So I'm putting in the lighter layers first so that I can go darker layer by layer. So looking at my reference image, I'm putting down these marks. You can use size 0 or size 1 brush because this is a very small area, and I'm right now doing wet on dry. I'm not doing wet on wet because it is a small area and I can see that there is not a lot of diffused shapes over here. That is why I'm doing wet on dry, and we'll be able to carve out the exact pattern which we can see, exact image shape which we can see on our reference image. I'm just changing my colors little bit if I see light, I'll change the values of the color so that I can create a three-dimensional impact when I look at it. In the shadow areas, of course, we go darker, so I'm not changing a lot of color over here. I'm changing the value. I'm using a darker color in the shadow areas. If you don't have a dark green, you have a dark blue, you can use that also. Mix it with any of the yellows and you will get a green. Also, if you have pink, red, purple, those are colors which you can mix with any of your greens and use for your shadow areas. Creating shapes as I see on my reference image. This area is a very dark area. It will go very dark soon enough. Using a slightly pale wash here. The sun is coming from the left hand side top. However, these leaves are bent down and they are in a shadow area, so they are not receiving a lot of sun. They are underneath the shadow of the rose itself. However, in places where it is very dark, where it is receiving no sun, there we go as dark as I am going here. We don't necessarily have to paint in every tidbit that we see on the reference image, but we cannot ignore those parts and those values which will help us bring out the leaf shape. Those colors, those shapes, those values we must adhere to, and that is precisely what I'm doing. So I have gone slow over here because you see that it's a small area and I'm trying to bring in the shapes and the values which I can see in the reference image. We don't want to go wrong, so I have slowed down the pace. In the corners I just put in some more color, darker values. My brush has a lot less water. It is wet on dry and it hardly has any water. So do not wet because it's a small area and I do not want to wet this area a lot. I'm not editing this video because I want you to understand how I get the 3D shapes. So all of the processes which I am taking up is present over here. So if you follow each of these, you will be able to create your leaf, stem, or even the flower in its totality. You see, I'm going layer by layer. I had started with the pale wash. Now I'm going pretty dark. Maintaining the shapes as well, even when I'm going dark. So here it is that value corrections and value changes need to be made. That is why observation helps. Initially, even I could not observe very well. I started my big scale paintings with my big pink flower, but many people saw various other colors besides that pink, but I couldn't. It took me almost 1 month. By the end of 1 month, did I start seeing colors like orange and reds in that big pink flower. So as you do and as you observe, you are training your mind, your eyes, and your hand as well to look into more shapes and creating those shapes as well, which is what we are doing now. Now we let it dry and we come back to our rose. In this area, doing wet on wet, glazing with a thin layer of water. Why I am using such a small brush is because I am tackling a small area over here. Using the same mix of opera pink, already it is light, and once this area which I will be painting, it dries out, it will look even lighter. So we will go again layer by layer, painting small sections. I had thought of doing this with blue, but I thought that most people would have reds or rose color. That's why I thought that okay, let me continue with pink. If you want to do it with any other color which you have, you are most welcome to do that. It will be good, in fact, a good exercise in learning. If you have one or two colors also, for example a light blue and a dark blue, you can dilute it with water and create different mixes which you can use at different places. So you don't need to have lot many colors. For this rose I am using basically two colors, opera pink and quinacridone magenta, or any of the other pinks which I have. Basically two colors, and because I have used green, I might use green in the darkest darks of this rose. So in 3 colors we can complete it. Okay, so I'm just wiping out with my tissue some part of where I thought that there is a lot of water. I did not need so much water on the paper, So I absorbed it with my tissue paper. I'm pulling in the water onto the body of the rose. Even though I've absorbed most of the water with my tissue, not all of it is gone. So I can pull down some of the colors from, you see my colors are spreading. That tells you that not all of the water has gone. I'm looking at my reference image and working accordingly. If you need the reference image, do write to me. I'll send you the image, and if you need a blue image also, I can provide you that as well. Now, this is a very important thing that just struck me. I wanted to let you know is that whenever we are creating any of the shapes, say in this case the shape of this rose and creating the shadow areas, it is very important for us to mark the shadow areas properly and with the right colored values. It is important so that when we have completed or are nearing completion, we get the three-dimensionality of this. And the three-dimensionality of this will come about only by working in the shadow areas. Because shadows are those colors and those values and those aspects which are defining this rose as a rose, or any object for that matter, a ball as a ball. And some time back I had said that I'll be doing parts of the rose, but I changed my mind and I thought I must do all of it, most of it, at least 99% of it I think I'll be doing, or maybe 100 only, because I started this watercolor community on 28th of June, and at that time I had given a complete end-to-end video of my painting process, and very many times in between as well. If any of you have done the complete videos and created your paintings from these, you will know that I have given complete videos. So, and this is the year end, so I thought, okay, let me change my mind and create a complete video. So here I'm creating the base of this red pink rose. There's a lot of water which I have put down along with some color, and I have taken a bigger brush over here and doing some scumbling, that is moving the water and the color from the lower base towards the upper end. Now I'm darkening with my smaller brush the side shadow areas. Looking at my image for understanding where I need to change my values. There's a small petal which is folding towards the outside. I just created a shadow for it. Now I'm going on to the petal area. I have very less color and water on my brush. It's already a small size brush, and the other end I do not want to paint the other end with water, with any color. So I just dipped my brush and I'm painting with whatever colors I have on the brush and on the paper. I'm just dragging it to fill up the space. As we used darker colors for our shadows, you will understand this better, because through the shadow creation, which will add depth, you will also get the volume. You will understand how we can create the dimensionality, 3D effect for this rose. So here you can do wet on dry because it's a small area. It's a light shadow over here. So whatever is left on my brush, I'll be putting down that, and in this motion I'll be creating the shadow areas. Here, pulling it down.